I'm an anti-war researcher, writer, organizer, publisher, rabble-rouser, and I've lost my voice. 20 years ago, when I was younger and definitely more foolish than I am now, I started COAT, the Coalition to Oppose the Arms Trade, and our first campaign was to organize against Armex. And Armex 89 was our first campaign, and we COAT, Coalition to Oppose the Arms Trade, and we opposed Armex then for the same reasons that we oppose CANSEC now. Because of what it symbolizes. It symbolizes Canada's major role as a supplier of military equipment, and that equipment is used by dozens of countries to wage wars and to repress human rights around the world. Now, there are a lot of myths about Canada, and we feel proud, a lot of people feel proud of Canada, and one of the first things they put at the top of the list is that Canada is a country of peace. This is a myth. Most of my work, and most of the work of the peace movement, in my opinion, is to try to debunk that myth. And it is a very hard thing to debunk a myth. If you've ever tried to do it, it's almost impossible. But slowly, more and more people are realizing that it's a fabrication, that it's a lie, that it's not true. So despite the myths, which present Canada as a major global force for peace, the reality is that our country is one of the top players in the international arms trade. In fact, Canada has long been either the 6th or 7th, depending which year it is, largest exporter of weapon systems in the world. Canada exports military hardware, this is according to the latest statistics that we have, to about 75 countries per year. And about 40 of those countries have troops that are deployed in wars. 40 different countries that have troops deployed in wars, fighting in wars that are raging around the world. Many of those countries have troops in Iraq and Afghanistan. Those are the two main places where the recipients of Canadian weapons systems are fighting. 90% of the total value of Canada's military exports goes to those 40 countries. 90% of all the military weapon systems that we export. And between 70 and 80% of the military exports of the weapon systems that Canada produces go to one country and one country alone. Do you know what that country is? USA. It's the United States, of course. And that one country spends more than the entire rest of the world, all of the other countries of the world combined, on military, on their weapons. They spend more than the rest of the world combined. That country was what Martin Luther King described as the largest purveyor of violence in the world. And he spoke those words during those awful days when the United States was killing, the United States military was killing millions of people in Vietnam. Now things haven't changed that much. The US-led war in Iraq has killed, best estimates are about 1.3 million people. That's since 2003. There were about 1.5 million people in Iraq in the 1990s that died as a result of sanctions. Most of those were children under the age of 5. 1.5 million people, most of them children under the age of 5, thanks to UN sanctions that Canada enforced with our multi-billion-dollar frigates. And if you go to the COAT website, you'll see a lot of research there that I've put together on the companies, the exhibitors at CANSEC. They're deeply complicit in this mass murder. And you can find there the names of the companies, what they make, where these weapon systems are used. And basically, we make a lot of essential high-tech components, and they're embedded in virtually every major U.S. weapons delivery system. Every warplane, every warship, every tank that has been used in Iraq, Afghanistan, Gaza, and elsewhere each one of these things has Canadian components in it. These Canadian exports are evidence of crimes. These are crimes. Crimes against peace, crimes against humanity, and war crimes. And yet the police treat us like we are the criminals. Today, at the protest, 6 people that I saw were pepper sprayed. And they were in very horrible pain for at least an hour that I was near them. And they were in a lot of pain for an hour. Why? Because they were trying to stop a busload of people going into the war show. Who are the criminals? Why aren't the police investigating the people inside CANSEC? Now, crimes are committed by criminals, and the Nuremberg principles of international law state that it is also illegal to aid and abet these crimes. So who are the criminals? And this is going to be the challenging part. I want to challenge us all to think about that. Because who's aiding and abetting this? What about workers that work in those companies? Now, what about investors, people who invest in those companies? You've got to find out what these companies are. Make sure you're not investing in them. What about taxpayers? They can't go off and buy multi-billion-dollar frigates unless they have billions of dollars. And where do they get it? They get it from us. So aren't we complicit? Aren't we aiding and abetting them? And if we as citizens are aware that these crimes are happening, but we don't do something to withdraw our consent or to take nonviolent steps to stop our country's role in these crimes, are we not also among the culpable? That's a really tough question, isn't it? Anyway, what a downer. All of the weapon systems that are shown in this little presentation is embedded with major Canadian components produced by companies that are exhibiting at CANSEC today and tomorrow. And almost all of these CANSEC-related weapons that you're going to see are manufactured by prime U.S. war contractors that we are all forced to invest in thanks to the Canada Pension Plan. And you'll also see a lot of automatic weapons, machine guns and that sort of thing. They are all made by Colt Canada, which is exhibiting at CANSEC. The children in this video are in war zones that are fueled by Canadian war industries, namely Gaza, Afghanistan, and Iraq. All the kids that you see. I think there's an American kid in there too. Now, before you start throwing shoes at me, I better conclude. So what am I going to say here? I hope this event tonight inspires people to get more involved, and that you'll join us in our humble efforts to try to raise awareness and to try to make sure that this CANSEC today and tomorrow is the last military trade show that ever happens on city property. And that once we get it kicked off city property, we are going to get it kicked out of provincial facilities where it's been held for the last 11 years at the Ottawa Congress Centre. Then the next step is we have to make sure that it can't be held on any federal government property, and then we have to make sure it doesn't ever get held on private property. Now that's a lot of work to do, so we're going to need as much help as we can get. And even if we can't do any of those things, what we can do is raise awareness and try to debunk that big myth. Thank you very much.